Hello, this is Mary Mueller, and welcome to Discussion Board Forum Week 6 on Thomas Jefferson, his legacy. Thomas Jefferson bestowed a significant legacy upon not only America, but the entire world. To many, he is an American icon who symbolizes the most cherished and most contested values in modern culture. Some have perhaps elevated him to godlike heights, but others have attempted to weaken perceptions of his significance. According to Jan Ellen Lewis, many prominent historians now believe Jefferson is overrated and perhaps unworthy of being included in the pantheon of heroic founders who give Americans our historical self-understanding. But modern attempts to malign him in the past couple decades have not diminished his record of success. We are still blessed by his contributions, even if his reputation is being undermined. How serious are these threats to his reputation, and what are the charges against him? Ironically, in September of 2017, protesters at the University of Virginia actually called for the university to remove the statue of their institution's own founder. Jefferson was nearly the victim of hysteria at the university he himself founded. How can the court of popular opinion have turned on him so completely? Charges against Jefferson are certainly not new. An early and dramatic attempt to destroy his reputation came in 1802 when James Callender, an immigrant journalist with a genius for stirring up trouble and a vendetta against Jefferson, published as fact that Jefferson had fathered several children with his slave, Sally Hemings. Thus began the huge controversy that has plagued Jefferson ever since. The DNA evidence has made it clear that some Jefferson relative had children with Sally. But the question remains, did Jefferson or did he not have a relationship with his wife's half-sister and slave, the quadroon woman Sally? But much more importantly, does it even matter? Would it completely erase the legitimacy of his role as a founding father if he had had a long-term relationship with his wife's sister, which he necessarily would have had to conceal due to her situation in life? For many years, that charge was put on the back burner and simmered below the surface. Jefferson's legacy remained strong until the 1990s when this controversy was revived and DNA testing done. The whole issue is very politically charged, but nothing about this charge, even if it were true, undermines his legacy. The most enduring charge against him is simply that of pure racism. The rationale seems to be this: because Jefferson owned slaves, he is convicted as guilty of racism. Thus, he must be rejected, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. He was certainly a Virginian man of his time, and slave ownership was common among his class. But he may have been unique in that he struggled with slave ownership. Referring to the slave system, Jefferson wrote in 1787, "This abomination must have an end." He consistently advocated a plan for gradual emancipation, and he improved conditions on his own plantation to make life better for his slaves, teaching them skills, reducing violence, and offering financial incentives to hard workers. Jefferson should be given credit by his detractors for drafting a law in Virginia in 1778 that prohibited the importation of enslaved Africans. Additionally, in 1784, he advocated an ordinance that would ban slavery in the Northwest Territories. Perhaps this all shows that Jefferson was set apart from his peers because he made efforts to deal positively with the slave problem. He did more than his contemporaries in Virginia to work toward eventual emancipation. On this issue, then, perhaps he is best remembered for what he tried to do and what he promoted. After all, what else could he do? He did not possess the power to single-handedly abolish slavery himself. He was just one man among many. Even when he was president, he knew that the Constitution prohibited this sort of power. Which brings us to his political theories and contributions. What are some of Jefferson's gifts to us? What is his grand legacy? First of all, Jefferson articulated the natural rights of man in the Declaration of Independence. He declared that man has inherent rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This was a bold declaration that made natural rights a foundational principle of this nation. He understood that the role of government is to secure these rights, not provide them, but protect them from encroachment. America is blessed by this legacy daily. Secondly, he declared the self-evident truth that all of mankind is created with equal worth. He understood that people would certainly be unique in terms of talents, abilities, motivations, interests, and intelligence. But despite these differences, he made the bold statement that all are equal in worth. Third, he was firmly committed to a political system that limited the power of the central government. He understood that government power must be limited in order to keep government from encroaching on its citizens. Fourth, he was fiercely committed to private property rights. He understood that private property rights were one of the natural rights of mankind as articulated by John Locke, and thus he understood that government existed to protect the private property rights of its citizens. Understanding that governments were the worst violators of these rights, he committed himself to their protection. Thus, in all of these contributions, he was a key in launching our American Republican system of government. His legacy continues. Dedicated to religious liberty and standing in opposition to a state church, he also promoted freedom of conscience and freedom of religion. He was the author of the Virginia Statute for establishing religious freedom, and he famously wrote the letter to the Danbury Baptists, in which he reassured them that government was restrained from interfering in the religious expression and issues of conscience. He is a role model of public service to others. He invested his time in serving his fellow man through his many years of public service, from the House of Burgesses of Virginia to the White House. He avidly promoted education and even established the University of Virginia. He was in so many ways a true Renaissance man. Architect, inventor, farmer, musician, statesman, leader, writer, surveyor, horticulturalist, attorney, representative, governor, and president. But he wanted simply to be remembered as author of the Declaration of Independence and of the Statute of Virginia for Religious Freedom, and father of the University of Virginia. Jan Ellen Lewis wrote, "Despite the best efforts of modern scholarship, ordinary folk, or more accurately those extraordinary folk who still buy books, still love their great men. To those of us with large libraries who persist in our love of great men, Thomas Jefferson remains a man worthy of respect. We don't expect perfection from any of our heroes, but we appreciate them all the more for their humanity. Some refer to him as complex, but Jefferson was just a regular man with flaws and a sin nature like all of us. What sets him apart is what he was able to accomplish in spite of his normal human limitations. An impressive man indeed."